Today, we've been so lucky with the quality, like I said, of people we're having. This gentleman is going to speak to us, surprisingly, on the doctor and his African background. Listen to this. Things that parents need to know about raising up teenagers in European soil. He works as a doctor in accident and emergency medicine in London, graduated in 2016 with Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery from University of East Anglia, Norwich Medical School, completed foundation medical training in 2018. He featured on the popular BBC program Junior Doctors, and I'm going to tell you something about her quickly, as one of the breakout stars. He's passionate about medicine and media and emergency and pre-hospital medicine. He's a member of the Medical Association of Nigerians across Great Britain. Am I right? Yeah. He's an advocate for improving African healthcare. He's frequently involved in the activities of his organization across UK. Now get this. I told you before, I dig into people's life, not for negative reasons, but before I introduce you, I need to know who you are, where you're coming from. What I do, I have a license, so I can't just come and say things that are not right about you. You know what I mean? I Googled this gentleman to know a little bit more, and something caught my fancy. He says here, TV junior doctor Emeka Okorocha attracts legion. And when you hear legion, it's not one person, it's not two. Legion means a huge number of female fans. Hence he's here today. After sharing his top hangover kills. He's laughing at me because he didn't know I'm going to stick this up. Now, a junior doctor has gained, he was a junior doctor, don't mind that one. A legion of female fans after a video of him sharing hangover kills went viral on Facebook. You helped a lot of people. People are asking for that concussion. I don't know whether you still have that concussion. But let me not take you for that, ladies and gentlemen. I have the pleasure to introduce our own brother, Dr. Emeka Okorocha. Put your hands together. Put your hands together. Put your hands together. We want them. We want our brothers, our sons, our friends to be like him. Listen to him. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What an introduction. I didn't see that coming. But yeah, if you Google me, you can kind of find out a little bit more about me. Let me break out and say, first of all, thank you very much, Jennifer, for inviting me. I know I came a little bit late. I'll explain why very shortly. I was brought here basically on behalf of my mother, the woman at the well. Kind of told me what you guys were doing here, and I know how much she herself has done for women, and I know what you guys are doing here, and I just think it's brilliant. I feel like a lot of the issues that you guys have highlighted are a small niche, don't really get highlighted in the community very often, especially for women of color, black women, African women. So first of all, I'd like for you guys to give yourselves a round of applause for what you're doing today. Because I'm very proud of you guys. So my mother, Miss Emeka Okorocha, she couldn't be here, and I apologize on her behalf. She's actually collecting an award at a different event that just happens to be happening at the same time on the other side of London for the impact she's had on the community and for women, because she's working globally in Mary Kay Cosmetic Company. She also does some motivational speaking, in which she is an advocate for women empowerment. So because she's receiving that award, I'm here on her behalf. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it here. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go back to her award ceremony to support her there. But whilst I'm here, like T humbly said about me, I was on the BBC and I did graduate medicine in 2016. And then after that, I worked in the media. I worked for BBC. I've worked for a few companies since. I've done such videos as the Hangover Cure, and I've done some videos on health, the common cold, keeping yourself fit, etc., etc., etc. I'm currently working with some more at the moment. I can't really talk too much about, but you'll see me on your screens again very, very shortly. And so discussing what you guys have put forward for me in terms of my background and how I was raised and how I came to be to this level. I was born in Nigeria way back when. I mean, I'm old now, 26, so I'm getting on there. Not as young as I used to be. So I told you back in the 90s. I know some of you don't remember the 90s, a long time ago. But yeah, I was born there, and I came to the UK when I was very, very young. So about 1 or 2 years.
They said they can't hear you at the back. You speak loud.
Okay. Okay.
Or maybe you increase it a little bit.
Is it working? Is it okay?
Is it better? I think it's the voice. Hello. See, this is low.
Yeah. So basically, when I grew up, I had a very, very different upbringing to most people here. So I grew up in a place where we were the only black people in the whole town. My dad is a doctor, he's a surgeon, and so he moved around a lot for his job. We actually grew up most of our younger years in Scotland, in a place called Elgin, in between Inverness and Aberdeen. And I guess you don't know where that is, because I didn't even know where that was, and I lived there. And so there weren't many black people at all in our school, in our sports team, etc., etc., etc. So growing up, we always knew we were different. And in saying this, my parents were typical, very, very strict Nigerian parents. So they kind of instilled those values in us from a very, very young age. It was always my dad saying, read your book, read your book, read your book. Me, I like to play sports. So when I grew up, eventually I wanted to be a sportsman. I wanted to be a football player, a basketball player, an athlete. And I was doing quite well when I was younger. But my dad and my mom were kind of honing on me the principles of education. Obviously, they were very educated people, and they kept saying, yes, Emeka, you're talented, you're athletic, etc., but education is key. And for those of us who have grown up here in the UK, a lot of the time you could be influenced by your society, your background doesn't always come into play. I mean, for us growing up, we spend most of our time actually at school. And at schools, you can be influenced by your peers. All my peers were very, very different to me. They were white and Scottish. So their upbringing was very, very different to mine. So I'd have Nigeria back at home, Scotland outside of home. So we had to kind of adapt and balance. And I think it's very important when raising kids in the UK and outside of Nigeria that you make sure that those values that you have at home are projected when they go to school. So it was a case where people weren't projecting their values on me, I was projecting my values on them as I left the house. And my mom made sure of that. Whenever we went to church, whenever I went to play football, whenever I was doing anything, she made sure that, remember, you're not like them, they must be like you. And it was and it was the same for my brother and my sister as well. So we'd go out and we had Nigerian values, educational values, Christian values. And so no matter what was happening around us, we always knew who we were. So they let us know that we were different. And I think that's very, very important. That those of us trying to bring up kids, I mean, I don't have any yet, but those of us trying to bring up kids here, you let your kids know that they are different to their peers here. And that's okay. I feel like we do so much to try and fit in, whereas we don't need to, because fitting in necessarily isn't the best thing. I never wanted to fit in, I never needed to fit in. I always wanted to be myself, I always wanted to have the values that my parents told me about me. It's important to tell your kids exactly who they are and where they're from. You are this, we come from here, this is how we behave. No matter what you see in the streets, no matter what your friends tell you, no matter what you see in your schools, this is who you are. If you instill that day after day after day after day, you can send that kid to Brazil. And that kid will always be your kid from your household. And that's kind of how I was. No matter what happened, because we went to a school where there was a lot going on. If I'm very honest with you, I think I was 11 years old, and a lot of my peers were already involving themselves in sex and drugs and loads of stuff that you don't think 11-year-olds would really be involved in. But yeah, that was it, and it was happening all around me. I never involved myself with that. I never did any drugs or started smoking cigarettes or started drinking alcohol underage because I knew that's not who I was. It was exposed to me and I had it all around me, but myself and my sister and my brother, we always knew this isn't who we are. They might behave like this, but it's not us. So I think that is probably the most important thing you can teach your child is no matter what's happening around you. I mean, here there's a lot of young crime. I work in A&E. I see young kids come in stabbed every day. There was a kid who was shotgunned, even. He was brought into our hospital. You see these things happening with 14-year-old, 15-year-old children, and it's such a shame.
Yeah.
These kids have to know that this is not them. A lot of these kids brought in, obviously I know all their details. I can see these are African family kids. And I'm just thinking, you've been sucked into a world that's not you. Because your parents weren't raised like this, and you weren't raised like this. But the streets are like this, and you don't allow the streets to raise you, you're raised at home. And that's one thing that you can understand. So in saying that, you need to keep that at the forefront of your parenting. And especially you need to instill the values of discipline in these children. I know here in the UK it's very different because the ways you can discipline your children aren't necessarily the ways you were disciplined when you grew up here or otherwise possibly back in Africa. And my parents were strong believers of spare the rod or spare the belts and spoil the children. So they never spared any belts. I mean, they had different ones for different occasions. Depending on the severity of your crime, my mom would look at the belts and choose, okay, which one? Which one? You choose. And so I always knew that was a trick, because she's always going to choose the hardest one. So, and at the time, I didn't really understand. Disciplining and raising children. I know, even though I have no children, I know it's very, very difficult. It's not easy. And I think now that I'm older, I can respect my mother and father in the sense to say, you guys, you tried, because we were very, very active kids, but you disciplined us well. And at the time we were angry. I remember I'd be smacked. I'd go to my room like, I can't believe they're smacking me, big boy like me. But now I see it and it's like, okay, so this is what they were doing. They were making sure that because parents don't beat their kids out of hate, but out of love. And as a child, you don't often understand that. But it's very important for you as parents to make sure that you're not lacking or slacking on your discipline in order to please your child. You're not trying to please your child, you're trying to raise your child. And you need to understand that. I love and respect my parents, we're very close, but they let me know they're my parents, not my friends. We're not here for you to be happy, Emeka. We're here to discipline you and show you the values that you need so that when you're an adult, you will go out there and progress. I mean, I left my house at 18 and went to medical school, and I haven't really lived back since. However, all the values that I learned are still in me to this day. And that's because they were drilled in so hard. So that's one thing as parents you need to understand. And for the children here, they're just doing their job. Go easy on them, okay? Parenting is not easy. So don't be too mad at your mom and dad if you're told you can't go out with your friends or being smacked and this and this. I was one where I became so close to my siblings because we just couldn't do very much else. As in, when we were young, people were going to parties and staying out late and on the street, and I wanted to do that because it's fun, it's your friends, it's school and this. And my parents knew, no, because that's when bad things happen. Why should you be 11, 12 years old and you're on the street till 11, 12 at night, or what? What can you be doing that's progressing your life at that time? That's what they asked me. I said, but Mom, I'm just trying to play. She went, what play? Come in this house and play. Is this no video game we bought for you last week? and so I didn't understand at the time, but now it's like, okay, I understood what they were doing, and they were very clever in what they did because they created a home environment that was so good. A lot of the time, we were very content, and we didn't actually need to go out and play. They made sure that we had everything we needed, and that's a very big credit to them. And that's one thing you should think about as parents. Making sure that your environment is not just a house, but a home for your kids, where they can enjoy the values and you can have an eye on them and raise them. It's also important to understand the environment around your kids. Who are they with when they're not in the house? Who are their friends? Who are their influences? They say that you will become a product of the 5 people you surround yourself with the most. Who are those 5 people? Because my mom always knew the 5. She could count them. And if she saw me with someone new, she'd be like, Emeka, who's that your friend? That guy, who is he? What does his parents do? Where is he from? I'd have to give the CV of the kid if I wanted to be my friend or come anywhere near my house because she made sure of it. And I think that's very important as well. You need to know who your children with, making sure that they're with people who are safe and people who are progressive. Where do they want to go in life? That's why my parents were always ones who wanted to send me to the best schools, because they knew those kids that you're around, they want to achieve things. So a lot of the people I went to school with when I was younger have gone into medicine or gone into start businesses or go abroad or went to study in Oxford and Cambridge. And this is because we all have the same mindset, a competitive educational mindset as children. And that's what my parents made sure of pretty much. So that's another thing you need to take into account when you're raising children. So discipline, who they're with, making their house a home, and making sure they know who they are. That is very, very important. So, unfortunately, I can't speak too much longer because I do have somewhere to be on behalf of my mother, but thank you so much for allowing me to come here and speak to you. It's been a short day, but enjoy the evening and enjoy the rest of it.
Thank you. I will come closer. You're too tall. God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Isn't that wonderful to hear from such a young man? You see, you want us to let you go?
I'm going to have to run short.
Okay.
Did you buy tickets for the run?
Go and meet Doc there. Yes.
What happened?
If you did, well, they will get it for. We don't know your numbers. You need to give the counter for.
Let me keep it for you.
You really want to win this. You see, Emeka touched on a lot of things. The way we grew up, I told some people at a party last week, I said, have you seen the flip side of life? We